Here we are, folks. As promised, today saw the release of a new Canon Fodder article touching on many aspects of the recent Halo Infinite multiplayer reveal, providing names and lore for maps, helmets, vehicles, weapons, and more. Obviously, it doesn't give info on everything we've seen, selecting a few things from each category, but it's packed with a ton of new, interesting lore. So, let's not waste any more time and dive right in. Much like my recent breakdown of the available multiplayer info, this article starts with a look at our new Spartan commander and the lore framework for multiplayer. In Halo Infinite, players are part of a new wave of Spartan 4 super soldiers training at the Avery J. Johnson Academy of Military Science, or JAMS as I've decided to call it, for Johnson Academy of Military Science. Johnson loved his jams after all.
This stuff is your history. It should remind you grunts what we're fighting to protect.
A hidden facility on a remote frontier world, new Spartan recruits are prepared for the fight ahead by the very capable Spartan Lorette Agryna. Sadly, we don't know anything new about Agryna in this article other than her last name. As you may recall, it was pointed out that there are numbers on the fusion power pack of Agryna's armor, which could potentially point to her being a Spartan 3, given the high number. Sadly, we don't get any confirmation or denial here, and though the commander having a first and last name would generally point to her being a Spartan 4, it's still possible she could be a 3. And for anyone confused by that, Spartan 2s and 3s generally don't go by first and last names, usually just by a standard first name and number, or just their first name. Whatever the case is, I'm looking forward to learning more about JAMS and Spartan Agryna. Now, I'm sure a big question people have, and probably have had for a while, is how the UNSC is still pulling off stuff like this, training new Spartans, providing new gear and equipment, etc. I think Eternal Canadian on Reddit put it best, noting that while Cortana has some big and powerful forces at her disposal, she's spreading them over a very wide sphere of influence. Space is big, y'all. There's simply too much space for her to effectively control all at once. So if the UNSC sticks to the fringes, they can continue to operate to a significant degree. Just want to put that out there quickly before we dive into the rest of this article. From there, we get some new information on a few helmets and extras for the Mark 7 Armor Core. Though before we dive into that lore, the way things are worded here has me just a little concerned. To quote the article, with each of the helmets below as part of the new Mark 7 Armor Core. That certainly makes it sound like the helmets are restricted to specific armor cores, which would be a major disappointment and kind of an odd decision if true. Hopefully 343 can clarify soon. Anyway, on to the lore. First up we have Aviator, manufactured by Hannibal Weapon Systems. The Aviator helmet is tailored for use by cybernetically augmented aerospace pilots. Among its many special features is a high-bandwidth machine interlink configured to operate seamlessly with next-generation neural interlaces. Hannibal should sound very familiar to people, given the number of prototype vehicles they manufacture that can be found in wargames. The cybernetic augmentation mentioned here is likely referring to something simple like the neural interlace that all UNSC troops receive, which can be upgraded to fulfill certain needs. For example, officers usually have more advanced interlaces. Next, we have Soldier, manufactured by the Materials Group. The latest iteration of the Soldier helmet features a new revision of Material Group's Combat Catalyst firmware. The Fireteam synchronization features remain unfinished, but Dr. Halsey's interest may accelerate development. Materials Group is a division of the Office of Naval Intelligence and developed the original Mjolnir platforms in conjunction with Dr. Halsey. Speaking of whom, I have seen some speculation here and there that Halsey might be dead by the time of Halo Infinite, but this would seem to indicate that she's still alive and kicking. Next up we have a helmet accessory, the Zvezda faceplate, manufactured by RKD Group. The Zvezda faceplate incorporates a programmable phase array antenna grid, though leveraging its full capabilities has proven to be a challenge for software developers. A phased array antenna grid is essentially a way to create a narrow signal beam that can be easily redirected using several small antennae. This can be used in a variety of ways in real life, though lore-wise, it's just a cool detail. The RKD Group is best known for their work on Project Hayabusa, though they would also go on to develop Mermillion and Legionnaire armors for Mjolnir Gen 2. Wrapping up the armors is a look at a decked-out Spartan 4. We first have the UA Armet helmet attachment, which adds additional armor to the faceplate for added protection. It's named for the Armet helmet, developed in the 15th century. Next is the AAP Ordnance Pack and additional ammo pack, followed by the UA Viator shoulder pad. Viator is a Latin word meaning traveler, but I'm not quite sure how it relates to the armor. Maybe it's used by Spartans who are in the field for extended periods of time? I'm not sure. Finally, we have the transhumeral prosthesis, a prosthesis that extends up to one's shoulder. As we've previously discussed, players will be able to customize the extent of their Spartan's prosthesis on both arms and both legs. And on the subject of armor, a Mark 7 cosplay guide was released yesterday with over 100 pages of detailed renders and information for anyone who wants to build their own custom Spartan armor. I've left a link in the description box below. Now, let's move on to a couple weapons. First up is one that has people really excited, the Banished Skewer. A Jiralhanae design originating from before their alliance with the Covenant, the Skewer is an anti-tank spike cannon used by banished packs for anti-personnel tasks. The massive sharpened projectile is devastating, more than a match for titanium alloy at range, but reloading is a difficult task. The Skewer is an amazing weapon on several levels. It captures the Jiralhanae aesthetic that was mainly laid out back in Halo 3, and really makes itself distinct from other heavy projectile weapons. It isn't simply the brute rocket launcher, it is a weapon in a class of its own. That its history stretches back before the days of the Covenant is a cool lore bonus. Next we have the now familiar VK-78 Commando. Manufactured by Vakara Gesimb, VK-78 Commandos were selected by the CMA Frontier Forces to replace their antiquated stocks of HMG-38s in 2495. So as it turns out, the VK-78 is a weapon from the days of the Insurrection, primarily having seen action along the human frontier by colonial military administration forces. Not only does that explain why the gun stands out so much compared to other Halo rifles, the fact that it was mainly used on the frontier is interesting, given that the Johnson Academy is located on a frontier world. Might the UNSC have found a stockpile of these when they were running from Cortana's created, perhaps even stored away on the very world the Johnson Academy is located on? I love storytelling like this, where you can infer certain details without directly being told. Anyway, another detail that stands out from the description is that the Commando replaced the HMG-38. HMG-38s first appeared in Halo: The Fall of Reach almost 20 years ago in the hands of insurrectionists. That sadly does it for the weapons, but the vehicle details more than make up for it, I think. We start off with the Banished Banshee, manufactured by the Kailam Workshop. The Banshees that dominate the local Banished occupation fleet have been thoroughly optimized to increase armor and combat durability, but also maintain the base chassis' core performance aptitude. Next is the Banished Chopper, manufactured by the Bolroki Workshop. The shared knowledge of 6 disparate clans contributed to the refined and imposing chopper design that now permeates the Banished ranks. Its raw firepower and visceral locomotion provide their forces with the perfect tool for both breaching and demoralizing any enemy presence. What really sticks out here is the mention of 6 clans coming together on this chopper's design. Brute clans working together is not an easy accomplishment, but when they do, the results are often deadly, for someone at least. Finally, we have the Banished Ghost, manufactured by the Ryukta Workshop. The Ghost has proven to be as versatile a mainstay in the Banished garages as it was within the Covenant. This particular iteration focuses on forward armor while also providing enhanced firepower. The various workshops mentioned here don't have any prior mentions in the lore, nor are they named after anything established, so details like that will have to wait. When asked about them on Twitter, however, GrimBrother1 noted that they're almost like banished versions of patterns. If you're unfamiliar, many Covenant vehicles and ships have pattern names, such as the Morsam pattern Seraph and the Kai pattern Seraph. I can't help but wonder then if we might see different iterations of these vehicles over the next 10 years, with each variation manufactured by a different workshop. I'm also curious if we'll ever get traditional UNSC type designations for any of these. Time will tell. Next, we have a couple UNSC vehicles, starting with the AV-49 Attack VTOL or WASP and Mizria Armory Creation. Fast to produce and easy to maintain and optimize, the AV-49 has seen increased widespread use in environments and scenarios where versatility and low-profile operations are at a premium. It may not be everyone's favorite vehicle, but lore-wise, we can see why it's present in Infinite. With the UNSC trying to evade the created, an easy-to-make and maintain vehicle with a low profile would be invaluable. Wrapping up the vehicles is the M15 Light Tactical Vehicle, aka the Razorback. Originally a specialized offshoot of the traditional Warthog, the latest Razorback model is the result of a robust design study that incorporated learnings from rigorous testing programs on several virtually uncharted worlds. Even without onboard weapon systems installed, the up-armored design and increased payload capacity makes the Razorback an equally viable option on the battlefield, alongside its more ubiquitous porcine cousin. As mentioned in the multiplayer breakdown, the Razorback first appeared in the I Love Bees audio drama from 2004 in a one-off line, never again mentioned until it appeared in Infinite. I am loving the deep lore cuts this game is going for. The Razorback lacks weapons on its own, but it can be loaded with plenty of ordnance for those riding along. From there, we get a few details on the personal AI that will accompany our Spartans during their training. In particular, it highlights the Lumu construct. Lumu constructs share a common citation calculus core with AI used in the field of finance, providing a distinct cost-benefit approach to decision-making assistance. That being said, they aren't quite as fun at parties. There's not a whole lot to really break down there, but I love that these personal AI get some lore attached to them, as if there were any doubt that would happen. In the multiplayer Vidoc, 343 noted that they wanted to create a ton of these personal AI so players could choose one that fits them best. The mention of Lumu providing a cost-benefit approach to decisions highlights that this is the case in-universe as well. Wrapping up the core of this article is a look at the 5 maps that were shown off. First is Behemoth. It has survived for 100 millennia, but this ring still holds fast to secrets yet unknown. And next up we have Fragmentation. Now more than ever, Installation 07's serene surface belies a deeper strain and conflict. The only 2 of the 5 maps we know of set on Installation 07, their descriptions reference the bloody and dark history of the ring, a history we'll almost certainly dive into through Halo Infinite's campaign. The secrets may refer to the gap in Installation 07's history mentioned in Halo Point of Light, and the deeper conflict could be referencing Harbinger, whatever or whomever that might be. Our next map is Recharge, the first map we ever got to see. Resource infrastructure facilities such as those run by Axis's Hydroelectric Division help maintain stable energy grids for colony worlds throughout the UEG. After that we have Livefire. Instructors at the Avery J. Johnson Academy of Military Science ensure their Spartans are prepared for any challenge that a hostile galaxy throws at them. And finally there's Bazaar. The East African Protectorate's plan to rebuild the glassed urban core of Mombasa was ambitious and expensive, but Project Rebirth investment by the UEG and UNSC activity at the nearby Voyix session has revitalized some sectors of the metropolis. This one may be the most interesting in terms of lore. First, I'm sure some people were caught off guard by the use of Mombasa rather than the more familiar New Mombasa. While the two can generally be used interchangeably, New Mombasa is the name of the city, while Mombasa refers to the larger area around the city, including various municipalities that make up the more rundown Old Mombasa districts. Second is the interesting bit though, Project Rebirth. Project Rebirth was a UEG effort to rebuild locations destroyed during the Covenant invasion of Earth. What's interesting about it being mentioned here is that the project originally came from the press release for a Golden Master Chief figure made by McFarlane Toys. Though it was more recently mentioned in Halo Legacy of Onyx, that's still a pretty deep lore cut, though one greatly appreciated. I'm hoping Bazaar will have a partially rebuilt space elevator in the skybox somewhere. Something else I hope we see in the final game are more detailed descriptions for the multiplayer maps, or to put it another way, I want to see something like what the Halo Wars 2 Phoenix logs did for that game's multiplayer maps, where each map had something akin to a mini story in the Phoenix logs. We know Halo Infinite will have a database, and while we have no details on what that will entail, I would hope that something like the Phoenix logs are the bare minimum. That basically wraps up the Halo Infinite part of this article. No campaign information today, though that will happen down the line. A new screenshot was included though, from what looks to be part of the cutscene we saw this past Sunday. Interestingly, the Chief has an AR on his back here, which he did not in the showcase footage. While that could have been a choice 343 made for the showcase, it does seem to hint at the return of Halo 2 style cutscenes, where one's weapon carry over into the cutscene. That would certainly make sense with the way we've seen cutscene transitions so far. Thanks to Noel Guru on Twitter for pointing that out. The Canon Fodder article wraps up by highlighting the upcoming 7th season for MCC, which drops next Wednesday. A trailer for the season released today, and while including the new menu footage, it was accompanied by a brief audio drama of sorts featuring a Spartan and an elite pilot. The pair, part of Union Wing, engage with drones outside Anvil Station in Banshees. Say what you will about the voice acting, I found this to be an absolute treat, showing the cooperation being nurtured with the Anvil initiative. I hope future seasons can do stuff like this, and I hope to see more Anvil lore as time goes on, particularly in the books if that's ever possible. Naturally, accompanying this new season is some sick-ass promotional artwork by William Pixelflare Cameron, who also made my opening and ending graphics. The article also includes his work from previous seasons, all of them gorgeous. At the very end is a link for Harspus's reading of Soma the Painter from Halo Evolutions, which you should definitely check out if you haven't already. So, how do you feel about this new info? Anything in particular stand out? Are you as excited as I am to start your Spartan 4 training at Jams? Let me know in the comments below. Stick around for the Patreon shoutout, and until next time, this has been Halo Canon. First, I'd like to give a big thank you to our Harspus patrons. First, there's Hope, then we have Freight, followed by SS Diko-chan, Justin Montgomery, and finally, Discombobulated Sycophant. Thank you all for your amazing support of the channel. Next, I'd like to thank our theoretical patrons. If you'd like to see your name here or get a direct shoutout, check out patreon.com/halocanon. You can simply support the channel or get additional benefits, such as behind-the-scenes material, including the raw audio for upcoming videos, and even shoutouts like this. All patrons now get early access to certain videos as well, and more benefits are to come. However, your continued viewership is more than enough for me. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and maybe even subscribing to the channel if you aren't already. If you really enjoy this, turn on that notification bell so you can be among the first to see new videos when they release. But for all my fellow Canonites, keep on being awesome.